listening to the Content Sells podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 244. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and here with me is my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Suzi, I am doing really well. Thank you. I'm looking forward to speaking with our special guest today, who is someone we've had on the show once before, and she's so brilliant, we've invited her back.
Yes, our guest today is coaching and business expert Melinda Cohan, and we interviewed her way back in 2019 about a fabulous framework she has called Villains and Superpowers, and she uses that to design a really successful content marketing strategy. Since then, however, 2019, she's written 2 books, and the second of those books, which is called The Professional Coach, has just been released. And you are going to want to grab a copy of that book, whether you're a coach or not, and you're going to want to use the special link that we have in today's show notes, because it comes with some extra special gifts and goodies that are relevant to all businesses, not just coaching businesses. And we'll tell you how to get that a little later in the show.
We absolutely will. But first, let us tell you a little bit about Melinda. Melinda Cohan is someone I've had the great pleasure of knowing for near on a decade, and she is such a business genius. I've watched her grow not 1, but 2 thriving businesses in that time. And what I've personally love about her is she's got these big goals and she's grown big businesses, but she's also been an advocate for self-care and sustainability. And she also has such clarity of thinking based on real world experience, which I totally admire, which both Suzi and I love to have on the show. And Melinda brings both her expertise in systems and self-care to help coaches get over their overwhelm of running their businesses and focus on what they love, the actual coaching of amazing clients. And whether you're a coaching business or not, all of us love to help our amazing clients. She's worked with tens of thousands of coaches since 2004, sharing the value of strong business systems and processes, helping them turn their passions into profits. And to make that possible, she created the Coaches Console, which is actually a software system that leverages all the systems in one platform for branding, list building, marketing, enrolling clients, creating amazing client experiences, and a lot more. All of that is integrated into this one cohesive Coaches Console platform. Now, she and her team also bring the power of coaching and training to help coaches create a clear and realistic path to a business they love. Like I said, she's written 2 books, The Confident Coach and The Professional Coach, and she's also the host of the podcast, Just Between Coaches. And today we're going to be chatting with Melinda about attracting high-paying clients and growing a successful business. Let's get Melinda on the line. Hi, Melinda. Welcome to the Content Sells podcast. So great to have you here.
Hello there. I'm so excited to be back here.
We love talking to you. And I want to dive right on into our very first question, because you have a brand new book out. It's called The Professional Coach, which is an amazing book. I got a chance to see a sneak peek of it. And it's based on the idea of the 8 pillars of professionalism. And we've got a lot of coaches who listen to this show. But even if you're not a coach, I think there's huge value in these 8 pillars. Can you give us an overview of what they are?
Yeah, for sure. So the book, brand new book. I never knew that I was going to write a second book. I was so thrilled with the first one. And then when I saw the need for this one, it actually flowed really well. And it's centered around, like you said, the 8 pillars of professionalism. It includes the expanding of your commitment and dedication, because a lot of times when coaches in any kind of service-based entrepreneur, it's the same business model that we're talking about, the same elements of professionalism, no matter what services you offer your clients. But when we go from the early days of starting our business as an amateur and we're expanding to professional, we have to expand that commitment and dedication. We have to really get out of our comfort motive and our comfort zone and expand what that commitment is to and what we are dedicated to. The second pillar is defining your work ethic. And it doesn't mean working hard. A lot of people think if I just work hard and then work harder, success will happen. And that is not necessarily true. And so we get really clear on what that work ethic is. The third pillar is creating your unique value proposition. What makes you, uniquely you, unapologetically you, and how do you articulate that so that you feel confident putting yourself out there? The fourth pillar is establishing accountability to outcomes. And this is one of my favorites. because we take the services that we offer for granted. We love it. If you're a coach, we love coaching. If you do marketing, whatever that gift is that you have that you share with your clients, we take it for granted. But we have a responsibility to create the space and the environment for our clients to succeed. We play a part in the outcomes that they have. Not that we do the work for them, but we got to set them up for success. So we can't overlook that. And then the fifth pillar is designing the delivery of client support, because it goes beyond just the specific service you're providing, or just beyond the coaching conversation, for example. And we've got to provide what I call the exquisite client support level, to support our clients before they're interacting with our services, while they're interacting with our services, after, and then in between the points of contact that we have with them. The sixth one, another favorite, I think they're all my favorite. It's probably why they made it into the book. But the sixth one is setting professional pricing. This is one that just scares people so much, and it doesn't have to be daunting. They just don't know how to set their prices, however they're packaging their services, whatever services they're offering. And so I go through a really pretty simple money matrix to help people feel confident about the way they're pricing their services. We do that in that pillar. And then the seventh pillar is managing the business finances. It's a topic that a lot of entrepreneurs don't like talking about, but we've got to pay attention to. And so I break it down pretty simply in that pillar. And then the last pillar, what I geek out on a lot, is implementing business operations, because how you implement your business behind the scenes is going to be the difference between being burdened by your business or being liberated by your business. So I love that last pillar.
Oh my gosh. I don't consider myself a coach, but I'll be running, not walking, to get the book, because I love that system. And what I'm loving is I heard words like commitment, dedication, and, work ethic, value proposition. And then it's like you're giving us the finances and the operation. So it's very well-rounded. It's not just the soft is not the right word, Melinda, but it's just about having a coaching business. It's not just about being a great coach. So good.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Now, finding high-paying clients is something we talk about quite a lot here on the show. Now, in the book, you've got a counterintuitive, fill-in-the-blank kind of system that you talk about as a way to attract high-paying clients. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I cover in one of the pillars is the unique value proposition. Now, that's not anything new. That's been around since the beginning of time, I think. A lot of people overlook it, or they discount it. They're like, oh, that's nice, whatever. But they really don't own the value of what makes them uniquely you. And so we spend a little bit of time in this pillar to help entrepreneurs get really clear on their unique value proposition. And a lot of times when people do spend a little bit of time on this, it sounds like something that was made by committee. And the way I describe it in the book is, when you start reciting a unique value proposition, oftentimes it'll sound like Charlie Brown's school teacher. You remember how like wah, 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 and it's just like nothing. Right. But in the book, I talk about how your unique value proposition has to be, and I make up words, rememberable and repeatable, not just for you, and it's got to be write downable. Whoever is hearing this, you want them, it's got to be clear and simple and succinct. It can't be jargony. And it's got to be something so simple that it's like, oh, that's okay, there's you. And then they can go repeat it. They remember it, and then they can repeat it. And it's easy for them to write down. And so we cover that in the book, how to just really make it simple. And simple is so profound when it comes to this. Fancy, jargony, clevery, wordsmithy often gets us in trouble. And it also will have us put all of the attention on what I am. It's about me, my uniqueness. And while that's important, in that statement, ultimately, it has to be about them, the people that we serve. And so one of my favorite phrases that I talk about is, whenever you talk about what it is you do, always add the magic phrase, so you can. And And make sure you always end with that and make it about them, because that's what they'll most resonate with.
I love what you're saying, because this idea of being rememberable, write it downable, repeatable, often we think clever is the way to go. That's what's going to have us stand out. And what you're talking about is, no, it's going to be clear. They've got to get it.
Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you.
They got it clear. Yeah. One of our friends says boring is beautiful. And this is one of those situations where we can't let the ego take over so that we can be puffed up and be like, oh, mine's so clever. It sounds so sexy and amazing. And simple is what we're going for.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaking our language, Melinda, I mean, I don't know how many times I give feedback to people around this very thing, because I think it's also a degree of overcompensation. It's like surely it can't be that simple to just come right out and say it. So people will say to me, I'm trying to say this, and they'll tell me what they're trying to say, and then they'll show me the marketing language. And I'm like, forget the marketing language, just use the thing you just told me was what it is about as your marketing language. So I love that you're speaking to this point. It really is that simple. If you're listening right now, come right out and say it. And the other thing I find about jargon and being clever is when we haven't quite tapped into the meat of what our value is. We tend to skirt around the edges with just jargony, light, fluffy stuff, or we try and use clever as compensation for the clarity we don't yet have. So that one point alone, I think we could spend talking about the whole show about. There's so many other things I want to dig into in your book, including this resource that you share in the book, and it's the Coaching Business Roadmap to Success. Now, we love a good system here on the show. How can having a roadmap help prevent coaches, but also other small business owners, from working these 60-hour weeks, from not being liberated by their business, instead being like completely overwhelmed and inundated by their business? And how can we stop spinning our wheels as a result of that?
A lot of entrepreneurs, they take what I call that blind entrepreneurial. They're like, oh my gosh, I love this thing that I'm doing. People told me I'm good at it. I want to help others with this thing, and I'm going to go start a business doing this thing. And they just blindly leap. Their enthusiasm has them going. Their passion just has them running towards this. And in that moment, all of a sudden they're, oh my gosh, I need this. I got to do that. I need that. And they're in this reactionary mode right out of the gate if they're not careful. But having a roadmap, what I've heard in the 20 years I've been doing this with over 100,000 coaches that we've shared this roadmap with, and all entrepreneurs. I keep saying coaches. I have a special place in my heart for coaches because that's where I come from. But truly, consultants, healers, practitioners, any sort of service-based entrepreneur, it's the same trajectory. It's the same path, the same business. And having this roadmap, all of a sudden, I'll share this with an entrepreneur and they'll be like, oh my gosh, that's where I am. And when they can locate themselves, it's like a tether. Like before, they were just floundering in the void of who knows where. And that is very stressful. That creates a lot of anxiety because they don't ever know, is this working? Am I going at this right? Am I getting this wrong? And so having that roadmap is like a tether to know, okay, this is where I'm at. Good to know. And a lot of them are a lot farther than they realize. And then that right there, all of a sudden is this jolt of momentum. They're like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I still have a pretty good ways to go, but I'm farther along than I thought. And that jolt of momentum helps to create the clarity and focus on what they need to do. And then having the roadmap, knowing the different business phases that every business evolves through. Whether you want 5 figures, 6 figures, 7, doesn't matter. They all evolve through these phases in this roadmap. And so now you know exactly what to work on, where to put your focus, what to do next. So you're not having to go back and fill gaps or do something that you forgot or redo something because you didn't have what you needed. And so it really just creates this sense of efficiency, which creates this flow, which then brings out the confidence and professionalism.
We're all for flow. We're all for efficiency. We're all for confidence. And this roadmap, like, can you just give us like the very high level sense of what does this kind of look like at a very high level, this roadmap?
With the roadmap, there's really 5 phases that every business goes through. The first is it's a critical phase that a lot of people, when they take that blind entrepreneurial leap, they just go right past it. But it's the foundation phase. And in this foundation phase, this is where, when we were talking earlier, we get really clear on our values. We get really clear on our why. And these things at this foundation phase, that's our beacon through the other phases. It's like a pointing the way so we know how to answer questions that come up in the future. The first foundation, or the first business phase after that, is, I call it coaching client quick start. This is where you're at this amateur level. You're gaining the research, you're gathering, you're collecting, you're learning, you're starting to do this. At this level, you're getting clients from people you already know. At this level, you're making some income, but it's sporadic. This is where that a lot of people talk about that feast or famine, that roller coaster revenue. This happens at this phase. It's supposed to be sporadic because you're testing out, you're piloting offers, you're figuring out price points, and you're learning and gathering what works. And so we go through this phase and we try to get through this as quickly as possible. Most people get stuck here. That's why I wrote this new book, The Professional Coach, because most people get stuck here way too long. The next phase after that is optimizing conversions and mastering enrollments. And this is where we start optimizing everything. This is where we start growing in our list building, conversions, enrollment, client support, branding, referring, and we start optimizing these systems behind the scenes in our business. Because as your business grows, what got you here won't get you there. So we have to optimize and start making sometimes just small little adjustments to keep on that growth trajectory. And then we have the leveraging phase. This is where you start leveraging your time, your wisdom, your expertise, your content, your material, so that you can work with more people in less time. You can expand your impact. And then the final phase is scaling. Now, not everybody goes to scaling. A lot of entrepreneurs, they're very happy at a certain level. Perfect. And then there's those of us that are like, oh no, we're going for it. And then we start building out our team and really scaling our offers and our business models so we can reach even more people, make even more income, create a bigger lifestyle, and that type of thing.
Like Michelle said, we love a good system. We love a good model. And I love those phases. And I love that you said, look, not everybody has to do the scaling bit, because I think scaling can be one of those, you said puffed out.
Puff it up.
Scaling, and not everyone wants to do that. And I know certainly with our audience of women business owners, we want to grow a sustainable business that gives us the life we love, but scaling may not be part of that. There is a story that you tell in the book that is a way that you help clients get unstuck. And you say that it's something you learned from, of all things, a world-class, world champion dog trainer. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. This is one of my favorite lessons that I've learned in my business over the years. And Michelle and I, when we were in this mastermind together, Susan Garrett is also in this mastermind, world champion dog agility trainer. She is absolutely amazing when it comes to training dogs. And I remember I was listening to her speak one time, and she said this phrase. She talked about how the dog is doing the best they can in the environment you've put them in with the tools you've given them to succeed. And I was like, well, that's fascinating, because I love dogs. I'm pretty sure I was a dog trainer in another life. I just love that topic. And so when she said that, I was like, that's very true. And she went on to talk about when she gives a dog a command, a dog that she's training, when she gives them a command, and the dog doesn't succeed at that, they don't win or they don't accomplish that command, she doesn't scold the dog. She doesn't go to the dog first. First, she's like, wait a minute, what did I do? Where did I fail to set up the environment that the dog needed to be successful? And she goes to, was it the environment? Was it my body language? Was it the words that, like, whatever it was? And she goes back, she corrects that. And then most of the time, the dog wins. Now, immediately I was like, well, the same is true with coaching and working with our clients. And so often when clients are stuck, we forget to go back and look at our part. This is where I was talking about. We have an accountability to helping our clients be successful. We have to first look at the environment that we're putting them in. And so many coaches, they take this for granted. They spend so much time and energy and effort figuring out the marketing, getting the client, making the sale. And then when it comes to delivering the service, they're like, oh, well, I'm so good at this. It's just whatever. And you cannot overlook this. You have to put the same amount of intention and attention on serving the client as you do getting the client.
Talk about ultimate responsibility, like really taking responsibility for the result. Yeah. So good.
And I think with the industry, with the way the trajectory of the industry, the past 5 years, there's been a lot of people jumping on the coach bandwagon saying, I'm a coach and I'm doing this. And then they're like, they sign up their client. They're like, well, here's some resources. Okay, off you go. You got this. It's your job to do the work. And then they just never serve or support them. And I think those people in the 2-3 years to come, they're going to be dropping off, falling by the wayside.
Right.
And it's going to be the people that really put the attention on this aspect to set up the environment, to bring the tools and resources beyond the skill set that we're trained in, is what's going to help our clients. And, when we think about this, if you're, just to use coaching, if you're coaching a client and you've not given thought to the space or the environment that they're learning in, or what additional tools that could be helpful, then you're relying on them to succeed while maintaining the very spaces and habits that have kept them stuck up until now. And there's a very small single-digit percentage of people that can push through to success like that. And so we've got to pay attention to that.
You've put your finger right on something, Melinda. Like, Suzi, myself, we've worked with people for decades and we've seen this exact thing. There'll be those top 10% or 20% of your clients that just like they're the self-starter. They take the things you give them, they run with it and they turn it into success. And we think, well, what's wrong with everybody else, right? But I love this framework that it's not everybody else. It's what's wrong with our process, our program, our deliverable, the way we're doing it, that's not helping the rest of those people that don't have that natural self-starting ability.
Right.
Love
Which is
it.
the majority of the people that we work with. We've got to pay attention.
That's right. That's the 80%. And we can't, helping our customers win when we get those success stories. That's when more people want to come back and buy from us and refer. And, all our business becomes really powerful. But also it's why we're doing what we're doing is to actually help people win. And when we can really connect to that, I just love what you're saying here. And I just can't wait for more people to read in depth on this topic in your book. And now just about the book, one of the other big important business topics that you dive into, and I love this whole thing about shifting from like amateur to professional and, really leaning into the business side of things, is about money management in your business. And this is so key for small business owners, and making that shift from the amateur where, maybe things are thrown in a shoebox or whatever, to the professional view of how we manage our money. Now, even though this is a show about content marketing, we really wanted to pull this bit out of your content because it was so good to hear what you had to say about these Money Mondays that you do to boost your own financial confidence. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was something that I started doing. Actually, my husband and I started doing when we were looking to grow and transform our personal finances. I had a mentor that told me, because this was not a comfortable topic, as is for most entrepreneurs, small business owners, just the topic of money in a lot of different ways is triggering or daunting or whatever it might be. And so one of my mentors said, every week, make sure you are doing something that furthers your awareness of this topic. And so my husband and I were like, all right, let's meet once a week. And so we called it Money Mondays because we met on Mondays. And then it was just it's like Money Mondays. That sounds fun. Let's make money fun. And so we would meet and it would be, different things at different times. And then I took this into my business. And so my business partner and I, every Monday we would meet. And in the beginning, we're like, business budget and cash flow and profit and loss and balance sheet. And we're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what all that is. I'm supposed to know, but I don't know. And we would
heavy.
And we would sometimes we would just talk about it. So we got used to saying those words and phrases. And having the lingo and just getting comfortable being in the presence of those topics. And then sometimes it was, all right, let's look at our cash flow for this week. And what's the income that's coming in this week? What's the outgo that's happening this week? And how are we doing? And sometimes it was adjusting the budget. And sometimes it was celebrating because we had a big campaign and we won big. And so there was no specific set thing for Money Mondays, just that we met and put our attention on Mondays, on money, on those Mondays. And I did this weird thing, and I don't know, maybe it's me, but it worked for me. When I was daunted with money, I would just kind of keep it at bay. And I was like, well, it was just like, let's just keep it over there. I got to pay attention to it, but I'll just do the minimum I can. And then somebody asked me, what if money was a lover? And I was like, well, we'd break up pretty fast because I don't put much attention on it and I don't want to talk to it. And it's like, you stay over there. And I was like, well, that's not good. That's not healthy. And then I was like, so what if it was a relationship? And then I started treating it, and I was like, we would sit down and we would have conversations and we would get intimate and all this. And I'm like, all right, well, let's do that. And so then I just started thinking about money differently. And these Money Mondays were the framework for helping me to just expand my awareness and let the topic not be as daunting, because it doesn't have to be as daunting. Just most of us come from an employee mindset. We're good at a thing, we do a thing, we get paid for that thing. The end. And we just have never looked at any of these other things that are necessary if we're going to have any sort of business beyond just a hobbyist. And so that's why I've given a whole pillar and chapter to this topic, just to kind of, it's like, oh, pass the salt, like just that non-chargy kind of energy about it.
I'm so excited. I love the intentionality of looking at money and the ritual and intention that you put before yourself, knowing that I don't feel comfortable, but over time I'm going to learn this language. I'm going to get more comfortable with talking about money because I want to have a profitable business, and getting past that phase of being daunted, because it's really not a build it and they will come. I'll build my coaching business or any business and I'll be the best in the world and money will just come in. It just doesn't work like that. And you mentioned the analogy of money being a lover. I can't remember who said this quote, but it was something about if you are indifferent about money, money's going to be indifferent about you. And it's a similar sort of thing. It's like building a relationship with this entity, with this thing that is such an important reward for us for all the work that we do. But we have to be willing to get through that discomfort. We have to be willing to have a ritual like a Money Monday where we are not burying our head in the sand or looking at the bank balance at the end of the month and thinking, I think I'm doing okay, but actually knowing. So thank you so much for including that.
Love it, love it. Now, just extending the money conversation into something specific, and we've talked about this quite a bit on this show, which is how do we price and package our services? How do we put these offers together so that we're pricing them in a way that our business is profitable, that when we have that money conversation, we're happy with the conversation? It can be a tricky subject for many entrepreneurs. So in your book, you have this fantastic thing, the money matrix, and you also talk about setting aligned pricing, which is such a great phrase, aligned pricing. Can you talk more about that?
I'll talk about the money matrix in a second, but I want to talk about that aligned pricing because there's this phrase in the coaching industry, and I hear it in a lot of other places as well, but especially in the coaching industry, people will say this, and if you all say this phrase, I'll stick my foot in my mouth. We'll talk about this and have some fun with it. But they say this phrase, charge what you're worth. And that phrase, I think, is one of the damaging phrases in our industry. And I think it's one of the reasons that a lot of people continue to struggle with pricing their services, because our worth has nothing to do with the price of our services. Our worth is priceless, no matter what we do or what we don't do, how we show up or how we do. We are priceless human beings. And I think when we hear that phrase, charge what you're worth, it begins to mess with our mind and just do a horrible job in our mindset. But instead, when we can create pricing that's in alignment with the transformation that we provide, now we're talking. Because when the transformation, the outcomes, the results drive and influence the pricing, people can understand the value better because they can see the transformation. When the value's there, the confidence is there to invest. When the priority is there, people will invest. And so the aligned pricing is about the transformation that people will have when they go through whatever, however you package it. If it's coaching, if it's a membership, if it's a retreat, if it's consulting, if it's an online course, a do-it-yourself, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But let it be in alignment with the transformation that's provided. Because then, when you start with the transformation, one of my favorite things in business, in just about every system in business, is reverse engineer. Then you don't have to guess. You start with the transformation, and if you have a coaching package and when they work with you and they're going to get these kinds of outcomes, then you can reverse engineer to see what's going to be needed. So now we're getting into the money matrix. What do I need to bring to the table to support my clients to get those outcomes? So that's one element of the money matrix, everything I bring to the table. Because at entry level packages, it's going to be very different from a high-end offer that you're going to bring to the table for the kind of results that'll happen. The kind of results that client gets, a second part of the money matrix, are the client results, and what's the corresponding value? The third part of the matrix, and I love this question. I love taking clients through this exercise, having them answer, why are my services a necessity? And a lot of times, in order to answer that question, they have to ask the opposite. If my clients don't make change in this area of their life that I help them with, what's going to be the negative impact in their world? And when you can articulate that, you can see, oh my gosh, I got to get to work. I got to help these people get these results. Because if not, these negative things are going to happen, and that's not going to be on my watch. Not on my watch. And so when we can see why are my services are a necessity, it brings the value to the services that we offer and how important that transformation is. And then the fourth element of the money matrix is market price. If somebody doesn't hire you to help them create transformation, where are they going? What kinds of programs are they going to invest in? What kind of pricing are they going to pay? What kind of experiences are they going to have? And so when I find that when you look at it from these four aspects, then you have often a very, oh, well, then that means I'm going to be around this kind of price point. And it doesn't have to be daunting or triggering. It's just black and white. Oh, that's about the price range for this then. And it becomes a simple way to create the profound aligned pricing.
We're so happy
so
right now.
good. It's so good. We can't talk. We're just so happy.
We're so happy. So happy.
Speak it.
And I love the clarity with which I can already feel. I haven't had the opportunity to look at the book yet, but I'm so excited about the clarity that people will have when they have these frameworks and they have this understanding that's based on, like you said, 20 years and 100,000, hundreds of thousands of people that you've impacted. Speaking of which, you are a prolific content creator. We're talking today about the new book, which is your second book, but you also create awesome email marketing strategies and content. Can you share what one of your hidden advantages is that's helped you create all of this while not being burnt out, while having a sustainable business? Can you take us behind the scenes there a little bit?
Absolutely. One of the things that I knew early on, when I first started, as we were growing our business, I would see a lot of my colleagues taking great pride in working their fingers to the bone. Like it was this badge of honor that they were wearing. And I remember this one colleague, and he said, I haven't gotten out of my pajamas in 4 days. And I'm like, is that really a good thing? Is this like, and he's like, oh, but our campaign was so successful. And I'm like, I don't want to be in my pajamas for 4 days. That's not how I like this. And I just, time after time, there was another these two business partners, they had very successful campaigns. And then they were so burnt out. They were like bickering. And I'm like, wow, at what cost is this worth it? And I remember thinking, this is not how we're going to do this. This was back in 2012, 2013, when I first was starting to get into doing launches and campaigns and really looking to scale the business. And I'm like, no, this is not how we're going to do this. It was also at the same time that leading from the place of pleasure was a priority from me. My husband always talks about, he was like, do you know that you sparkle? And I remember when he first said that, oh my gosh, I melted into a puddle. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, thank you. It's true. I do sparkle, but wow. And so I've always wanted to protect that sparkle because I know that's part of my uniqueness that I bring to my clients. And so self-care has always been so important to me. I'm like, how can I create these still high-level, multiple six-figure campaigns, big launches? How can I and the team do it while protecting our pleasure, while protecting our self-care, giving of the overflow? And so that has been a priority for us since the early days. And one of the first things that we did in the very first launch that we ever did, I was like, okay, gang, and I was talking to my team, we're about to have a bajillion tasks coming at us for the next 2 weeks with all that we were doing in this particular launch and the way we're doing our launch. And so leading up to the launch, several weeks beforehand, I had the whole team create a baseline care plan. And every team member shared with me, here's what I do on a daily basis. Here's what my morning routine is like. Here's what kind of food I eat or don't. Like, what's your baseline? And so we all established, here's our baseline. And so we were doing that and bringing attention to it. And then I had them create their launch self-care plan. And I had every team member, no matter what role they were playing, they had to write up as the activities ramp up, our self-care is going to ramp up. What's that going to look like? And it was different for every one of us. And what I learned was it doesn't matter what you do. Like for one gal, she loves riding horses. So it was more about horseback riding. Another gal had her favorite chocolates within reach. That was her thing, right? And so each one of us had different things. Another guy, he would go on a bike ride. That was his, riding his bike. But the degree that your activities ramp up for projects in your business, your self-care must also ramp up at the same time. Self-care cannot be an afterthought. Well, when I get this, then I'll do that. That is a recipe that you're going to do a face plant. And you might be in your pajamas 4 days, but you're going to probably end up being sick. Another colleague of mine was so burnt out after the campaign, he missed the kickoff and the fulfillment, starting to fulfill his program. And it's like, no, we're kicking things off, and this is why we're doing this. And so that baseline self-care plan and then the launch self-care plan to really make sure that at any given time, we're always giving of the overflow. We don't have to fill ourselves up and then come back and give, and then fill ourselves up and then come back and give. That back and forth, that is exhausting in and of itself. But when we can have this kind of fluid self-care plan, the energy is always overflowing no matter what's going on.
Oh my gosh, it's so different to what a lot of people do. It's like, okay, I'm going into this phase where I'm going to be super busy, so we'll sleep next month. I've just got to go till, I'm running on fumes just to get this done. But then, but I like that. I like that leveling it up. It's like, don't not go to the gym. Don't not, have that normal meal structure. Don't not have that time with your family just because, just increasing that's a writer downer for sure, Melinda.
Yeah. One of my team members during one of the launches, he caught me. And I remember we were in this meeting, and because he knew we all shared our plans with everybody. And so he was like, how's your meditation going? I was like, oh, I haven't gotten to it today. I've been so busy, so many things going on. And he just calmly said, it's probably when you should be meditating twice as long. And then he just let that hang. And I was like, right. And it took me a while to really build up the commitment to that, to really see the value and why that should be a priority. and not an after the fact thing. And when Michelle taught her Create Without Burnout cycle, and with her gracious approval, I even write about that, because that was a game changer. That took what I was already doing to a whole new level, because, Michelle, as you call that saturate, create path, I just put a big, pretty pink bow around that path to make sure I didn't get burned out doing that path. And then you add in this Create Without Burnout cycle. And I'm like, well, there's the next level game changer with that right there. And it really is about giving of the overflow. The more we can do that in our business, the better our business is in service to our clients and in service to our own life, the lifestyle that we're creating, which is the whole point of starting your own business, I think. It's a both and. It's serving the clients and serving our life. And how do we do both?
Well, we have a link to that Create Without Burnout episode that Michelle and I did, so we'll be sure to link with that. So thank you for mentioning that wonderful resource. And speaking of resources, you've already indicated there's a number of frameworks and models in the book that are going to be beneficial, but you've actually created some other reasons for people to buy the book, some extra resources. Could you tell us about those?
Yeah, throughout the book, I talk about, like in the money pillars that we were talking about, I talk about the money matrix, or I talk about, as a budget. I was just earlier today, I was talking about with this gentleman. He's got his own business, and he was like, I know they tell me to have a budget, but I don't know what's supposed to be in it. And so in that, the one pillar that we talk about, managing business finances, I talk about here's what to include in your budget. And so one of the resources you can get is an actual workable spreadsheet template, so you can start tracking your budget, cash flow report. How do you do that? And so I take this, I just don't talk about it in the book. When you go to the book's website, there's a toolkit, the Professional Coach Toolkit, and I'm giving you all the resource that roadmap that we talked about. You can download that so you can locate where you are, and then you'll see the milestones to hit for each phase. And I want you to have the resources so you can roll up your sleeves and get to that level of professionalism, because the faster you can get there, the faster you can get in that flow. And that's where that confidence is, and that's where that credibility is built, and that's where that trust happens. And that's when people buy from you, is when they know you, like you, and trust you.
Thank you.
I love it so much. And you can get a copy of that book over at theprofessionalcoachbook.com. You definitely want to get that, because like what Melinda's saying here is, it's not just a what book, like what you need to do, but there's all of this how that you get when you go to that link, and you can get the Professional Coaching Business Toolkit. And it's got, like Melinda said, the cash flow template, the money matrix, everything she's talked about today. And I love that, because we know, hey, yeah, I need to do a budget, but like, what goes in a budget? You're answering that question, which is brilliant. And I also believe you're giving people a bonus of the audiobook. Is that right?
Yeah. When you go to get the toolkit, we'll give you the audio version of the book as well. So that is my gift to you. So that however, if you, like, I love the hard copy in my hands, you can go get that version if you want. A lot of people love the audio version, listening to it as they go. So that's there as well.
I love it. I love it. So generous, so powerful. What an amazing interview. Thank you so much, Melinda, for sharing your brilliance, for being so generous, for just being the person you are in this world. We so appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Ladies, thank you so much. Thanks for having me here. And thanks for letting me geek out on all this topic stuff. I love it.
We've loved it. Thank you. I could have had that conversation go on all day. She speaks my language, and I just know that whether you're a coach or not, there will be a lot that you can take away from this episode. I know I'm taking a bunch of things away, Michelle.
Yeah, it's always so good just to talk to someone who is really a master in their space, and she's taken all these complexities of a business and drilled it down to some fundamentals. Like I love the whole approach around this shift from being an amateur at something to a professional. And I think that's a mindset shift in our business, that we go from like just dabbling to, hey, I've got a real business. I need to show up like a real leader, to charge like a real business charges, and so on. So I love those 8 pillars of professionalism that she talked about, which really underpin her new book.
Yeah, I love those too. And I just love her combination between like visionary and then really practical. And those 8 pillars demonstrate all of that. There's so much that she shared. There was one little thing that I know I've been guilty, or we've been guilty of saying to people, and that is charge your worth. And she had a really nice take on that, which is that our worth is way beyond what we could ever charge, our actual worth. But what is the right pricing for the transformation that you're creating for your ideal clients? Align your pricing with that transformation. I thought that was a really great distinction on something that I know a lot of our listeners struggle with, and that is, how do I actually ask for more? How do I position my pricing in a way that is in line with the transformation that I create?
100%. And for me, that phrase that I tend to love to use, because I agree with what Melinda's saying about charge your worth. I don't love that as a phrase, but I do love own your value, which is, I know, something we've said a lot here on the show. It's what we talk to our masterminders about. And what I think Melinda gave us with that point was this idea of really understanding how to communicate that value by, like you said, tapping into the transformation. So I loved that. The other thing that I thought was great was, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, about jargon and being too fancy or clever, with things, and how jargon is really like diminishing your ability to attract high value clients because they're not clear what you stand for. And I love the 3 things she said your unique value proposition needs to be. And Melinda does love to make up words, and that is something that makes her stuff a lot more memorable too. But she says it needs to be rememberable, repeatable, and write downable. So many times I hear things and I think, I can't remember what 5 minutes later, I've talked to somebody, I can't remember what they stand for or what they do. But there are those people that you speak to and you just know, you never forget what it is they do because it's really doing those 3 things.
I love that. And yeah, we can often get caught up in clever, and it's kind of an amateur move in some ways, because you'll find that the biggest brands, the ones anyone, whether it's a personality or a product or a service, we remember them. We can relay that information because it's clear. I loved talking about money. I always love talking about helping women create more profitable businesses. So I love that's part of the core work that Melinda does. And I love the idea of how she created the habit with those Money Mondays, starting to build that relationship with money, starting to look into areas of her business that maybe weren't clear at the beginning, and maybe there was language that was confronting or not easily understood even by her, but she persisted with it until it became more comfortable. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, whether it's money or whether it's any area of business. For some of you, it's marketing, but just to get into that relationship with that part of your business, because otherwise we are off tilt. We, might be strong in one area of business, but there might be a black hole in something that's really important. And for me, money and marketing are 2 of those big pillars in our businesses that we want to have a great relationship with.
Yeah, and I love what she said. She asked a great question about money, like, how can we make money fun? I thought that was such a great question because for a lot of people, money is that daunting conversation or the thing they feel anxious about. How can you make talking about money something you want to do? And I think that's a great paradigm to take into your business. Now, the other thing, just while we're on the money track, I absolutely love what she had to say about aligned pricing. How to align your pricing with the results you're delivering, and how to get to that kind of from this reverse engineering thinking. Like, you were speaking before about the transformation, like beginning there and kind of reverse engineering your thinking all the way back to how you communicate that value. So that all distilled with that big question she asked, which was, why are my services a necessity? And I thought that was such a great question to ask ourselves. Why are my services so needed by my client? And what happens to them if they don't get them? And I think that puts a real fire under all our butts when we realize, what, if people don't know how to manage their money or grow their business or market their business, these are all the side effects that are going to happen to them. And that can be very motivating to get out there and really, I want to say the word fight for our clients, really lay down our best efforts at getting those people to take our services.
I think there's a certain level of empathy that is built when you do play that out and think, well, if they don't take up this service, if they don't heal their gut, if they don't deal with the menopause, if they don't put these systems in place, or whatever it is that you help with, what might happen if we extrapolate that out? And if you can empathize and get really clear on the pain that they will continue to experience, or perhaps it'll worsen, it really does allow you to go to battle for your clients and for the work that you do. The final thing that I wanted to mention was something that is very aligned to one of our taglines at her business, is do what you love every day. And for me, part of doing what I love is having a sense of freedom that my business gives me, my freedom to travel, to be creative, to connect with who I want to create things with. And she said being liberated by your business rather than burdened by it. And so I think that's just a great little measure for us to check. How am I doing? Is what I'm doing right now, is it going to help me become more liberated in my business, or will it have me feel burdened? And I think that's a wonderful long-term approach to think about in your business, about just continuing to create a business that liberates you. So that is getting really great with your content marketing. That could be putting in place financial systems and rituals. It could be bringing on a team, whatever it is for you, but really thinking about that liberation, that freedom as what you want your business to be doing, rather than it being something that feels like a burden because you're the one stuck doing all the things. You're the one who is responsible for every decision. You're the only one accountable. So I really love that.
Me too. I mean, we can never hear these messages too many times. I think everything she said is worth a re-listen to this show more than once.
Absolutely. And also getting a copy of that book. So we mentioned some things in today's episode with Melinda that we're going to put across on our show notes. But I just want to remind you to get a copy of Melinda's new book at theprofessionalcoachbook.com, because when you buy the book, you get the Professional Coaching Business Toolkit, which is a bunch of free and really valuable resources that include budget and cash flow templates, her money matrix, and other really great tools that Melinda mentioned earlier in this episode. And they're also in the book. Plus, you get the free audiobook. And I love an audiobook. So I'm definitely going to be getting a copy. The link to anything we talked about today, and of course to Melinda's book, can also be found over at our show notes page, which you'll find at herbusiness.com/professional coach. That's herbusiness.com/professional coach. So I agree with Michelle. This is a good one to rewind and listen to again, because there was so much gold. Now, we love to share tips like these that Melinda gave us with as many business owners as possible. And what really helps us to do that is to have great ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. And we are so grateful to have over 100 5-star reviews. So thank you if you're a regular listener. If you're new to the show, I've got something for you to do. Just hang on a second. But first, I want to thank someone who and it's actually a someone's who gave us a shout out on LinkedIn. So there's a page with over 16,000 followers, and the page name is Human Resources. And we recently did an episode called 5 Ways a Virtual Assistant Can Help You Do Better Content Marketing. And the page actually gave us a shout out to say great tips on how a virtual assistant can streamline your content marketing efforts, and did a shout out for the show. So whoever you are, administrators of the page, I want to thank you so much for the shout out. We so appreciate it. Michelle, what do we have coming up in the next episode?
Well, we did both mention at the start of today's show that we do love a good system, and we're coming back to the next show with some more system-centric focus. We've chosen some of our favorite marketing systems to share with you. Now, back in episode 211, which is, over 40 episodes ago, Suzi and I picked a couple of our favorite marketing systems. And we're adding to that with 4 more of our must-have systems to help you get more streamlined, more efficient, more effective with your marketing. We're going to be sharing a little bit about what our systems look like for those kinds of things, and just get your brain turning. You might have these systems already and learn a little way to streamline it some more, or you might be thinking, oh my gosh, no wonder I'm having trouble with this part of my business. I need to systemize it. So that's all coming up in the next episode.
So if you are new to the show and you don't already subscribe, go ahead and hit subscribe or follow wherever you are listening. If you enjoyed this episode or any episode of the show, we would love it if you would leave us a rating or review. Michelle, anything you want to say before we go today?
Oh, Suzi, just a big, huge thank you again to Melinda Cohan for sharing her brilliance with us and reminding us all, that it is about really tapping into the value that we bring to the people that we serve. And definitely a reminder to grab her new book.
Yes, and thank you again. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sells podcast. Bye for now.